Welcome, my friends. The best thing I have ever seen or heard about, ever, in being a alternative and complementary wellness professional for almost 15 years now, is a little bit of a controversial topic. Okay, before I just drop the bomb on you, I would ask you to consider looking at the ingredients of all your high-end cosmetics, and you'll notice an ingredient in there called urea or uric acid. Okay, what that is animal urine. All right, and there's a very good reason it's in there, because it's arguably the best thing for your skin. And consider also that amniotic fluid, what we're breathing and drinking and basking in for 9 months in the womb, is primarily your own urine. That's what that is. That's why a baby's skin gets so incredibly healthy, and like it basically never looks better than that, right? It's just like sometimes you can go as far. I'm not saying try this, but like a baby's skin gets scratched or something, heals so fast because it's just been basking in this stuff, for 9 months. So it is the very best thing you can use for your skin, and you can probably tell at this point. Caught on. This is a giant P. So when I got into this years and years ago, I made this shirt. I know, it's wild. Most people don't know. Got what? Got heart chakra? Those are all fine. But no, baby, got P. And just a real quick context of how I got into this. About 10 years ago, roughly, I got a little case of staph infection. Okay, and because most people don't even know what that is, MRSA, meth-resistant staph, Staphylococcus aureus, is epidemic nowadays. People are dying from it literally by the thousands. Okay, the proverbial infection. More people have died in every war from staph than from weapons. Okay, swords and whatever in the past, and bullets nowadays. More people from staph because it's always on our skin, and it really doesn't start. Basically, what it does is it eats your flesh, and if it gets internally, it eats your organs and everything else, and then it's really bad news. But it really doesn't have a chance to attack, so to speak, until your immune system is low. That's why a lot of times when the hospitals are filled with them. That's why if you ever go to the hospital, sanitize your hands, your shoes. I'll spray alcohol on the bottom of my feet if I've been in a hospital. You don't want to mess around with MRSA. It's gross. But I experienced it, and I'm glad I did, because otherwise I wouldn't know about this. I got a tiny little red mark on my hand, like so small. I'm like, what is this? And it itched. That's the telltale. And they always say it's a spider bite. Unless you saw the spider bite you, spiders don't really bite. They're very reclusive. It's rare, okay? Very rare. And so unless you saw it bite you, it probably isn't. But bites can get infected. Anything with your skin can get infected. Bottom line, don't itch it, okay? The telltale with staph is that it just itches and it feels so good to itch. It's probably staph. Not only are you digging that thing deeper into where it is on your body, and then it's going to even be worse. A few days later, it's just going to be like this gnarly boil. Like, have you ever had a boil? That's staph, okay? It gets under your fingernails. Now, everything you touch, lights and doors and this and that, people, they're going to get it. It's exceedingly contagious, and it can hang out for a while off body. And here's where it gets really dangerous. You scratch yourself. Usually your nose is the worst. You put your finger, even just like a quick, oh, boom. Now, you shouldn't touch your nose at all for this reason, but especially if you're messing with staph on your body, don't touch your nose, your ears, no orifice at all. Because then, that's when that's when it starts taking lives. Because you put it, it's close to your nose, it's one breath away from your lungs, in your ear, by your brain, and everything else. So be very, very mindful. Don't pick your nose in general, but definitely don't itch anything that you think you have that's itchy, like a little bite or something. It's probably staph. Boils, it's all staph, okay? But what you can do is, and this is my Ayurvedic doctor told me about this, okay? When I tried all the Western stuff, I hadn't had literally as much as an aspirin in 7 years. At that point, I'd been vegan 7 years, okay? Literally not an aspirin, not any antibiotics, nothing, zero. I'm not just trying to sound dramatic, literally nothing. And all of a sudden I was on all the heaviest antibiotics that they can give you, okay? And it still didn't knock it out. I still had MRSA. My flora was all a mess. I had to do all this probiotic to replenish, and I still had staph. And my Ayurvedic doctor said, no problem, just put urine on there, it'll go away. I started laughing hysterically because I knew he was right. I had heard somewhere if I peed on an athlete's foot it would go away, and it does, by the way. But for anything skin, but staph, here's what I did. I took a small little shot glass. I don't drink alcohol, but I like shot glasses for this. I put a Q-tip in it. Then I take a Band-Aid, okay? And I wet the Band-Aid just to where the pad is saturated, but not more than that because I don't want it to mess with the sticky part. And then I just undo this. Of course, hands are always clean. And so I had the staph right there on my hand, and I just put it right on there. And this is nice because you could just, every time you pee, sit down to pee, which is what the real cultured guys are doing nowadays anyway, because it doesn't splatter everywhere. The mess in the bathroom is usually the man's fault. And it gives you that extra moment of rest. You can just relax, and there's some Taoist methods where you dig your toes into the ground as you pee, and it stimulates your bladder meridian and this and that. But anyway, I do sit down to pee. You can sit down to pee at home, not in public, and just do it that way. Every time you pee, boom, boom, boom. But you know, it can get messy or whatever, and if you're doing it over the sink especially. So I would just pee in a little glass. And then I would dab it on like I said. And then what you can do is, the nice thing about this, because if you got a blemish, like a boil or something, it's going to take usually a few days to go away, and over on the Band-Aids can kind of irritate your skin, especially if you have latex sensitivity. You can just take the urine, you know, with a Q-tip like this, and kind of just slide it underneath. See how it's slid underneath? And just reapply the urine. And then I'll use the same Band-Aid for a while. And then the excess urine that came out, I'll just take the other side of the Q-tip and dab it, and done. And it's just a Band-Aid like anything else, but the staph is not going to have a chance with this, okay? And by the way, staph in your eye, you know what we call that? Pink eye. And you can take a drop, single drop of urine, and it'll knock it out in 5 minutes. And I know that's a tall claim, but I've done it the handful of times I've got pink eye. You can either just take like a thing like this, but this would be a lot, and it'll kind of be a mess. Usually what I do is I would take this, pour it on a spoon, take a paper towel, put it under my eye, and just a couple drops in the eye, and literally in a matter of minutes, Audi 5000. Okay, amazing, amazing method. Okay, and there's a lot of internal uses in India, and they call it Shivambu. Okay, very famous. I recommend just go on Google and type in urine therapy, and this is endorsed by thousands and thousands of doctors. They'll just go on and on. Millions of people around the world do it. Apparently all the royal families know about it. This is ancient medicine, okay? It's not that hard to believe that God, or whatever you call the creative force, would give you your own medicine right there between your legs. Even in this country, United States, they did a lot of research at the turn of the century about urine therapy. Once profit motive became the, only thing that matters, why we go to war and everything else, we don't hear about it. There's no money to be made in this, okay? But you should know about it. I believe it's your birthright, okay? And as I said, there's many internal uses. I'm not going to cover that. That's too big of a jump. If you're just first coming into this, it's on my skin, woo. The thought of drinking it, is probably beyond the scope, but it's a very valid practice, which quite frankly I also endorse. But I'm going to leave that for, that's another level of healing that, say that for another day. But even just topically, this is non-threatening because you're probably already using it. If you're putting animal urine on your skin, and it's good for you. I mean, urine that's another thing. Internally, you only want yours because it's perfectly formatted to your body, mid-morning, midstream. But if you're using it topically, you can get away. Some people have told us, they're like, well, that's a little weird, but if my wife did it, that'd be fine. Fine, get freaky, do your thing. Topically, you can get away with that, but still I would do it in the way I'm describing, all clean and this and that. The other thing you'll probably notice here, lavender oil. This is what I use for my aftershave because, again, it's the best thing I've ever seen or heard about putting on your skin. So I shave, I use an electric razor, and then I rinse with cool water. Sometimes I'll put ice if I'm doing I just want a puffy or whatever, but normally just cool water, towel dry, and then I'll take like this, and then just dump it in my hand, over the sink, everything, and then just dab it on my face, just a little bit, okay? And then, but of course now your face smells like pee. And I wouldn't recommend for that reason, just in general, using the first stream of the day because it will smell the strongest. I will usually use later, but you can get away with the first, but then I use lavender. I chase it immediately. A few drops in the same hand, blah, 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 blah. I don't smell like anything. And then the third round, urine first, lavender second, third round is a moisturizer. And my skin has retained its youthful kind of prepubescent look and softness and everything. Most guys' skin gets leathery as hell from not using any moisturizer at all. But even urine, it's just so easy. And I know a lot of big-time Hollywood people, and I won't say their names for privacy reasons, they put it in their hair. Amazing for your hair. You just got to be mindful. Ultimately, it's going to smell like pee. You don't want to smell like that. So if you're going to do that, go in the shower. I would take probably a bigger cup, put it in my hand, get my hair in there, and then I'll usually put on a beanie or something so it doesn't get everywhere in the house. If I'm going to sleep, like overnight, that's a really good way to really let it penetrate and give your hair that luster. But I would put a full towel doubled over on my pillow because I don't want that. And then I'd wash even that pillowcase the next day. So there's a few things you can play with. But it's amazing for aftershave, for any kind of cuts, okay? And you don't want to scar. You're out in the wild, whatever, you don't have access, just pee on it. In Hawaii, the surfers, they get cut on the coral and stuff, pee on it. You won't get staph, which is notorious out there. Just pee on it, gone, And scarring, if you get a blemish, this is the best thing for acne. My God, let me tell you. If you get a blemish, first of all, that's a sign that you're toxic. Because the lungs, large intestine are paired organs in Chinese medicine, and the skin is part of that system. And so when you have a lot of blemishes coming out of you, that the main telltale sign that is your diet sucks. And even environmental, of course. But the main thing is food. So another thing you can do with urine is an enema. You just type all this stuff. Go and do your own research. Look on Google. Type in urine enema. You just shoot it up there, and it'll totally clear out your large intestine and thus your skin. But if you don't want to go that far, which is understandable, you just take the Q-tip just like I just did, and okay, you got a little blemish, just dab it on there. And if it's really bad, you don't want to scar, you could take a Band-Aid and even cover it up on your face. But that's latex on your face, whatever. You might not want to do that. I would probably just do a lot of applications of this throughout the day. And one last little note I do want to mention, burns, anything. You don't want to get a scar. Oh, and one last note on scar before I get to my last note. Keep it wet, keep it moist, okay? Neosporin type of things, I don't actually use that because I don't like the antibiotics, but I use other type of things that are similar, kind of, the complementary wellness sphere version of Neosporin. I'll keep that on if I get a cut or something until it's healed, because part of the main reason we scar, that scab gets so prolific and it dries everything out, and if you keep it wet, the scarring will be very minimal. Same thing with urine. I'll usually alternate. I'll do like urine and then I'll put on some form of even just shea butter, something to keep it moist, and then the next round, 2, 3, 4 times a day, urine, shea butter, whatever, okay? The last thing I did want to mention, primary reason I'm sharing this with you is regarding staph, because it's epidemic and it's huge, and it doesn't need to be, period. And if you have it on big areas of your body, I would probably wipe it off real good with alcohol, or peroxide if you want to go there, and then dry it, and then urine the hell out of it. Like, it's eating your arm, urine that bad boy, and then wash your hands, like, use plastic gloves or whatever, just like be mindful. It's when you start touching stuff. If you go to the hospital, my God, sanitize your hands when you're done, and even alcohol spray the bottom of your shoes. It's so prolific in hospitals. It's like one of the biggest killers, MRSA. Okay, but the last thing I wanted to mention regarding staph or any type of skin use, especially when it gets into the dangerous range and frankly life-threatening, like mine was almost. It was in my nose. I mean, I look like a wicked witch of something. It's just like all gnarly. I'm so lucky I didn't, you just take this Q-tip and put urine up your nose. Gone. Done. Forget all those antibiotics, if you don't need them. In that case, I use the first urine of the day because it is the strongest. So in that case, I peed in just a little sealable glass container, a little vial, whatever, empty lavender jar, whatever. And then you can keep it in the fridge, but you don't really need to, because if you're going to use it day 2, 3, after that it will start getting strong and more vinegar, smelling. And for the skin, that's fine, but it just gets so strong smelling, it might be a little hard to stomach. So anyway, this first pee of the day is good for, you just keep coming back topically, okay, I got staph, I don't want to, have it be bad, and it won't be a big deal. Boils, all that stuff, it's all staph, and it doesn't have to be that, big of a deal. It'll come to a head, the pus will burst, throw it away, wrap it up real well. Don't let any kids touch none of it because it's really contagious. Don't get it in your mouth because if it gets internal, that's something else. Then you got to consider the internal shivambu, and other methods. But again, I'm not going to cover that this day. So, got pee, my friends. Hey, if it's good enough for the Royals, there's probably something to it. So anyway, I offer you this very, very valuable practice with humility and with the red light of joy and love in my heart. Practice well and be well, my friends.